Okay, so I think we can start. First of all, hi everyone. My name is Ashlie and I am from Chainstack. Thank you so much for joining us for our Build Better with Corda webinar today, where you will be learning how our managed Corda service will let you deploy, test, and ship your Cordas faster. So you'll see how Chainstack is making it easy for enterprises to start leveraging of distributed applications on Corda DLT. So before we begin, I'd just like to do a brief run through of what's going to happen during this webinar. Laurent Dedenis, who is the CEO, he will do a brief introduction of who we are and what we do, in case you haven't already heard about us. And then Jona, who is our product manager, will give you a brief demo of the platform and I'll show you exactly how you're going to be able to deploy your private networks and easily manage your Cordas. And then finally, we'll hand it off to Zaid, who is our head of pre-sales engineering, who will run through a little bit more on Corda and run through why Corda is suitable for enterprise settings. So just before we begin, obviously this is an interactive webinar and we're here to help. So please feel free to ask questions. There is a chat on the bottom and you can submit all of them over there and we will be more than happy to respond to any of them. So without further ado, Laurent, could you please?
Sure. Ashlie, thank you very much, and a very good morning and good afternoon to everyone that have joined us. And as Ashlie mentioned, this is a Corda-specific webinar that we put together. We've been working with Corda and the Corda ecosystem for the past 9 months, building and automating provisioning and deployment, as well as management of Corda nodes and network. This is the third webinar that we are running. We are running this webinar at different hours so that different people around the world can actually take part in it, and instead of watching it in a recorded fashion, could actually interact with us. This is a relatively small group, so we hope you guys will ask us questions either through the chat feature of Zoom or directly at the end in the FAQ. We're very thrilled and super excited to be working with the fast changing and actually fast growing R3 ecosystem. And the more we learn and understand about Corda community, and the more we talk and interact with them, and the more we are positively surprised by how far developers and partners and now consortiums have actually built and deliver on Corda vision. So we hope that what we're going to spend the next 40 minutes going through with you will actually help you to understand how you can build better and faster on top of Corda. A quick word about Chainstack. Chainstack is a blockchain platform as a service. We're basically a blockchain managed services, and we provide tools and services for developers to build, deploy, and orchestrate scale nodes and networks for decentralized application. In the last Gartner report on Gartner Hype Cycle for Blockchain Technology 2019, Chainstack was actually highlighted in what they call this managed services for blockchain, which is a very interesting new category that I think is providing context for partners and for enterprise to use and build on top of as they grow their networks. Chainstack is not 100% focused on Corda. We are both blockchain agnostic, Jona, please, and cloud agnostic. We support multiple protocols and ecosystem for Quorum, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and multi-chain, and soon Fabric. And we allow deployment into multiple clouds. We are working primarily with Google, GCP, and AWS, and Microsoft Azure. So without further ado, I'd like to start by playing a very short movie about what Chainstack does before Jona actually walk us through the basic of what we have worked on regarding Corda. Thank you.
Like cloud computing, blockchain has now become a disruptive standard in the enterprise world. Many businesses are embarking on blockchain projects, only to discover that working with blockchains requires deep expertise and a new mindset. Deploying blockchain protocols, understanding consensus, growing and managing a consortium, auditing transactions, ensuring security. It's just plain hard. What you need is a reliable, secure, simple way to start leveraging the power of blockchain in minutes, not days or weeks. And you want it available in one, unified, easy-to-manage platform. You want Chainstack, an enterprise-grade blockchain platform as a service. Chainstack helps you build, deploy, and manage networks, on cloud or on-prem, and on a variety of protocols, because enterprises have unique requirements, and when it comes to blockchain protocols, there's simply no one-size-fits-all. Chainstack combines powerful wizards on its front end and complex orchestration at the back end, so you can easily bring up, configure, provision, and manage your networks in a few clicks. Create permission networks on Fabric, Corda, Multichain, Quorum, and more to come. Or launch a node on a public chain such as Ethereum. And that's not all. Form and scale consortiums without any special configuration or long-winded policy, all the while ensuring security, from the infrastructure and website layers to on-chain and off-chain. Simply put, with Chainstack, you can take your blockchain projects to market faster, be several times more productive, and leverage network effects. Chainstack, designed to help you get the most value out of blockchain in the simplest way possible.
Okay, so thank you, Laurent, for the intro. As mentioned, I'm going to do a quick demo to go through the platform and show you what we've built with Corda. So at the moment, we launched our first offering with Corda in CordaCon just last month. And this first iteration allows you to very easily and very quickly deploy a private compatibility zone. So essentially a private Corda network in just a few clicks to your deployment option of choice. So whether that needs to be in cloud or a hybrid deployment on-prem. And users can come in and join that consortium with multiple members. We can deploy new nodes into that network as well across different cloud providers. So we're not limiting ourselves to just one infrastructure provider. And then, of course, we can also deploy Cord apps, which actually enables us to make use of this network and interact with each other. So I will jump straight into that demo now. Here we go. So this is the Chainstack console landing page. As you see, I have a few projects set up already in front of me here. They're a mixture of consortium and public chain projects. So as Laurent mentioned, we support both Bitcoin and Ethereum. So you can join either of those nodes onto the mainnets and testnets. But we also support several different protocols for consortium blockchains, such as Quorum, Multichain, and now Corda. So to take a look at Corda, we'll jump into this consortium that I've set up earlier here. And just before we start, I'd like to highlight the members feature in Chainstack. And essentially what this allows us to do is to just very quickly and by email invite other members to participate in this project with us. And what that means is once they accept that invitation, that organization is able to set up accounts in Chainstack themselves, and they can start deploying infrastructure in here. So whether that be a new network or a node within an existing network in this project. And in this way, we can have shared infrastructure amongst different organizations who own their own account and pay for their infrastructure on their own, but all operate within the same network and same environment with each other. So in this example, we have just two members in this project who will be able to operate with each other and transact amongst each other. So here's a network I created earlier, which is a Corda network with two nodes, as you can see. But before we take a look at that one, let me just show you the process of creating a network. So we'll create some network here, some systems network. And of course, we will select Corda as our protocol. As you see here, we will, across our different protocols, we provide the option to choose which consensus algorithm you'd like to use. At the moment, we just support a single notary for Corda, but we're looking to support notary clusters soon based off of either Raft or BFT Smart consensus amongst them. But for now, it's still sort of an experimental feature in Corda, so it's not something that we are supporting at the moment. So you can still build a network with a single notary and scale that up to multiple notaries if you need, but they just won't be operating in a notary pool amongst each other. So from this point, we can now define how we will deploy the initial nodes in the network, whether that be cloud or in hybrid environment. In this case, we'll be selecting cloud. and we will deploy this network initially in GCP. And we're in Singapore today, rainy Singapore actually, and so we'll put this in the APAC region. As you can see here, this will deploy a network map service, a non-validating notary, and one participant node, and a doorman as well, actually, all in this environment. So here's a summary of what we're about to create, and we can go ahead and do that now. So there's a lot of complex orchestration happening in the background as we spin up this network and register the initial node with the doorman and on the NMS, and get all the relevant certificates and keys and whatnot required for those nodes to participate with each other. So that should take about 3 or 5 minutes or so. And while we're waiting, we can jump into this one that I've created already. So, excuse me. This ticket net is an example based off of a tutorial that we have in our documentation site, which shows how, just sort of a fun example of a Corda app which prevents ticket scalping by putting the tickets distribution as transactions on the ledger in this network. And as you can see, I have 2 nodes or 2 organizations that are participating here. One is this, Antarctic record distributor, and this other one is Ticket Monster, who will receive these tickets and then distribute them to their own customers or sell them to their customers. So if we take a look at this node here that I own, it's run by my organization, as you can see here. This is the one that I'm logged in as. We have the legal name of this node and some RPC credentials for us to be able to connect and interact with it. And if we take a look at the other node in the network that is owned by this other member that I showed earlier, we just are able to see their legal name that we can, the only piece of information that we need in order to be able to transact or do anything with this organization. We can come in and add a new node into this network. For example, let's say we're setting up a new distribution option in a different part of the world, and maybe we can deploy this one in a different location or a different cloud server. So as you can see here, this network is running in GCP and AWS with nodes in different locations and configured to the way that makes most sense for the operators who are within it, the node operators within it. But of course, this node is kind of useless to us unless we can install some Corda apps, some applications on here for us to actually be able to transact and run flows with the other nodes in the network. So that's why we've built this, this special interface here specifically for Corda networks on Chainstack for users to be able to come and manage and install their chain code, so their Corda apps, sorry. So as you can see, I have 2 Corda apps already installed here that I did earlier. But I can easily add a new one as well. So for example, here I can maybe add the Corda Finance app. And we'll unpack the manifest of this Corda app and do a few validation checks to ensure that it is, the file looks like a Corda app. We're not installing anything strange on here. And then if we choose to install it, this node will then be restarted as we put the Corda app on the file system of the node and reboot it to install correctly. But I won't do that now because I'd like to show an example of this NoScalped app that we've installed earlier. And we can jump into the screen here where I can connect to my node and initiate some flows. So let's quickly find that node again. Our network is still pending there, and our new node that we created is also pending. Okay, so we'll use the Chainstack standalone shell, which is just a Dockerized version of the Corda standalone shell to perform our operations here. So I think this is the correct node that I did earlier. Yeah, we'll add the host and the username and password required to connect to this node, and we'll just run this. All right, there we are. So we're in the node. We can check the node info here to make sure it's all correct. Yep. And what we want to do is, let's see, list out the flows that are installed. And as you can see, the no scalp flow that I showed earlier is installed already. And what we can do now is initiate this flow for, let's say, an event that we're going to distribute some tickets for. This one will be the Chainstack concert. We'll distribute 500 tickets, and the distributor that we are going to give these tickets to should be Ticket Monster, which in this case is this node right here. So we'll start that flow. And there you can see we've created the transaction. We're sending it around to the relevant participants and getting it verified and signed, getting it notarized as well by the notary that's on this network. And that should finalize soon. There we go. And we can check our vault as well and see that it is in fact there. Yes, great. All right, so that is that in a nutshell. You can see how straightforward and quick it is for us to set up a new network and to set up nodes and infrastructure within that network, and then to install chain code and actually perform operations on it. And in terms of what's next for us, this is just our first initial step into Corda, but we're looking at some news will be coming soon regarding supporting Corda Enterprise, as these nodes are all running open source at the moment, and also the ability to join nodes onto public networks such as the Corda network, as this is something that we've heard a lot from our customers, that this is where the business networks will be operating, where people will be installing these Corda apps and actually running real-world, real-life transactions there in a much larger network with many more node operators within it. So yeah, a lot of interesting news coming there in the next few months from us, so stay tuned. And in the meantime, I suggest you go and sign up to Chainstack. You can get a free account and start playing around with this interface right away and actually developing and testing any Corda apps that you may have, or any environments or situations that you may want to be able to test and run some examples with. So that's that, and I will now hand over to Zaid, who will talk to you a little bit more about the case for Corda and give you some examples of what that might look like in a real-world environment.
Thanks, Jona. Hello, everybody. I'd like to take you through some of the industry use cases and show you an example of exactly how you can actually set up a consortium on Corda and make the most use of it for your organization. So Corda was initially developed with requirements for the financial services industry, but today you'll see that there's been applications in multiple industries, from healthcare to retail to transport logistics. If you check on the R3 marketplace, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, you'll be able to see a lot of these examples that are available today. In these various industries, a number of consortiums have already been formed. You may have heard of consortiums such as Marco Polo, Voltron, B3iTech, or Uben. These are where a number of institutions have come together, formed a consortium within that industry, and are actually, transacting with each other. Within each consortium, they'd typically specify their own standards, their own schema, and own governance mechanism to be able to work with each other. Within these consortiums, every party in that consortium to a specific transaction knows exactly what each other in that transaction is seeing. But parties not part of that transaction will not be able to see specific transactions. So there's no need for reconciliation, and it's 100% guaranteed that what I'm seeing and what I'm sending you, you are seeing the exact same thing, which I'll talk about in next example. So I'd like to talk to you about setting up a new example or consortium for the transport and logistics industry. So in this example, think of us setting up a brand new network. We call it the service network, and it's running the Corda protocol. So on Chainstack, if you had to deploy this network, we'll give it to you with a network map service, which has Corda dormant. So this is a permission network, and with the network map service, you are issuing a certificate to specific parties only. So if I issue a certificate to independent inspectors, they have now have the ability to connect to this network and transact with other parties. We also set it up with a non-validating notary node. So what this does is ensures that any transaction in this network is unique. So there's no duplicates and no opportunity for a double spend scenario. So in this transport and logistics scenario, there are multiple service providers who are performing services for a number of transport and logistics companies. Once a service is performed, an invoice is sent from the company that performed the service to the transport company. The transport company will do some internal due diligence, ensures maybe that this invoice matches the purchase order. But as an additional step in this example, before the invoice is paid, your company will actually ask another third party, please, can you inspect the work to make sure that it's 100% complete. Once this third party has verified it, then we will release the payments. So this is an example of a very complex workflow across multiple companies in this consortium. If I had to demonstrate it in a little bit more detail, these are the, so I've taken three of these companies in this consortium: Pacific Technical Services, Independent Inspectors, and Enterprise Carriers. So Pacific Technical Services will perform the service, record it into their books, apply credit to Enterprise Carriers account, generate the invoice, send the invoice to Enterprise Carriers. Enterprise Carriers will then receive it, key it into their accounts payable, all the way to acknowledging the service and paying the invoice. Wherever you see these red blocks, that's where I think that there is some sort of friction in the scenario where you have to double check or do some sort of reconciliation of activities that one party is submitting to you. Another step over here is once the service is performed by Pacific Technical Services, they inform independent inspectors, this work's complete, let's schedule an inspection. So, you can validate that what I've done is 100% correct. So independent inspectors will record it and, generate a report and share this report with Enterprise Carriers so that they can acknowledge the service was done completely before paying the invoice. What you have over here is, if you had to do this on a Corda network, you'll have shared truth, shared business logic, shared data, and everyone is on a shared network. And once you have this set up, you can actually, remove these opportunities for where there's a friction and, the need for reconciliation, and you can do things much more faster and much more efficiently between all parties with 100% visibility. So what, if I had to go into a little bit more detail, I'm just going to quickly talk to you about flows and states. These are components part of the Corda architecture. Or specifically components within a Corda app. So a flow is something, it's like a workflow. It's a sequence of steps in a process. Corda has these flows which are common, across, they can actually run across multiple parties in a consortium. So in this example, for my three main activities of performing a service, inspecting it, and doing the payments, I will set up a flow for each of them. If I had to just quickly talk to you about, drill down into one scenario, I'll just focus on the inspection flow, where Enterprise Carriers will assign work to Pacific Technical Services, and they will assign the inspector as independent inspectors. Pacific Technical Services will then call the inspection flow and with the ready to inspect method and actually schedule work with independent inspectors. And once independent inspectors has completed the inspection, they will do a status update on the same inspection flow and either accept or reject the work. This assignment of the inspector scheduled and acceptance or rejection, we will record it on the vault of each of these nodes within a state. A state is a shared fact. It's that immutable piece of data that you record on your ledger. So everyone in this transaction is sharing a common flow, and they can all see the states, the state of that flow 100% correctly. So what Corda does, it gives you a full privacy. So only these three parties within this consortium can actually see the details of this transaction and see what that state is. You've got shared application logic, which eliminates the need to do reconciliations if you are part of a transaction. You've got immutability, where those shared facts in your vault or the states can never be changed. You have known identities, so that domain, which is your network map service, issues certificates to known identities, and only those known identities on this permission network can transact on that network. It's enterprise developer friendly, so you can code your Corda app using Kotlin, which targets Java and JavaScript users. There's an open source and an enterprise version available. So today we've got the community edition available on Chainstack, but we'll be supporting enterprise soon. And we have this common flow framework, this common workflow framework, which allows for complex workflows between multiple organizations where there's multiple dependencies. It's a really quite a powerful feature. So Corda has got this, or R3 has got this marketplace where you can see a number of the solutions for various industries developed by Corda's partners and customers. And they've also got the R3 directory on the marketplace where you can see all of Corda's partners, and Chainstack is one of them. So how do you get started with Corda on Chainstack? So I think the best way is within your organization, look for a process or within your value chain with other organizations in your industry where there's a need for reconciling data, because where somebody submits something to one party and that party actually needs to make sure that what I'm receiving, is it 100% correct, and does it match what I have in my books? Look for where there's an opportunity, where there is friction that can be eliminated, or where there's potentially disputes between various parties in a transaction, perhaps related to the latest version of an agreement or correctness of an agreement. Then set up a Corda network across all these parties. And as Jona demonstrated, you can actually do this in minutes. Sign up for one of our subscription plans, deploy this private Corda network, and invite other parties to deploy their own node within this network. And then deploy a Corda app that allows each party to execute flows to reach agreement on transactions between parties before it's recorded to the ledger, which we sort of demonstrated to you. Ashlie?
All right, thank you so much, Zaid. So just to wrap up this webinar, I'd just like to point you guys into the right direction in case you are interested in finding out a little bit more about our Corda implementation. If you'd like to sign up and deploy your Corda app onto the Corda network very quickly, you can go to console.chainstack.com. We have a 2-week free trial. If you're looking for tutorials and other further resources, you can go to docs.chainstack.com, where you can also access and follow the tutorial for the Corda app that we have just shown you in this webinar. We also have technical FAQs. If you're interested, you can go to support.chainstack.com. And if you'd just like to learn more, you can go to www.chainstack.com. So if you go to the next slide, sorry. Yeah, so sorry. right, immediately after this, we will also be sending you a recording of this webinar. They will also include all the links to all the resources that we've mentioned, and we'll also have contact details in case you have any further questions and you'd like to continue this conversation. We'd be happy to speak to you and continue. But again, before we end this webinar, I'd like to open the floor to questions. In case any of you have any questions, we're happy to help. Okay, so Jim has a question over here. Does any one of our...
So Jim, thanks very much for the question. So we are a pay-for-usage platform. So we charge very much like a cloud provider would do. We charge, excuse me, we charge for the compute and the traffic on the platform on the actual node per hour. So we charge cents per hour depending on the region and depending on the cloud provider. It's all very transparent. In fact, you can go to chainstack.com/pricing, and if you drill down all the way to the bottom of the page, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see a price calculator that will give you an exact price point for running public or private blockchain nodes, and also you can amend the number of nodes depending on your plans. That will give you an exact amount per month.
All right, so if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for this webinar today. Thank you to all the presenters as well.
Hold on. I'm sorry, Ashlie, we have one more question. I'd like to, I'd like Zaid or Jona to look at it. Sorry, I'm reading it. Zaid, you want to take this? Are there any plan to include identity access management into Chainstack? It's a platform as a service, but a blockchain specific platform as a service.
So sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself there. This identity management topic can be a bit, complicated. If you can actually elaborate a little bit more detail, maybe offline.
I can add to that. So we are looking into identity management in terms of the identity and certificates of the nodes themselves. So at the moment, as you saw on the network, we will automatically generate an identity for every node of the network based on the organization and the node ID of that node that we're creating. But we're looking for more advanced options, especially as we are considering, or as we move towards deploying nodes onto something like the Corda network, where identity is very closely managed and monitored by the network operators, the Corda Foundation. So yes, there will be features for that coming soon, probably. Thanks for the question. And I see the next question is in terms of on-premises. So at the moment, we are only deploying networks into cloud, but we have features in development for on-prem deployment where we could deploy nodes on-prem as well. That's something that we can discuss quite closely already if it's something that's important for you in terms of getting a beta release of this feature out before we do a full public release. So there's definitely a possibility to talk about that together if it's something that's important. And I think the second question here, at the moment, the control for NMS and doorman is abstracted. But again, if that's something that we need to provide control to, we can do so. So at the moment, the network leader has the ability to, as I showed earlier, has the ability to invite other members into the network, and that will automatically grant access to that person as the doorman and register them on the network map service when they deploy their first node. But yes, you are all asking questions around features that are coming quite soon. So more advanced controls around that network and the permissions on that network, and managing who has access, and granting and retracting access for those members is also something that we're looking to build soon. So if this is anything that's interesting to you, then please do reach out and we can discuss more closely our timelines for any of what we just discussed here. And if it's something that we see a particular interest in the market, then we're happy to prioritize it on our roadmap as well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Please contact either Zaid, Jona, or myself at ld@chainstack.com if you want to pursue this discussion regarding up-and-coming feature in either Corda network or Corda enterprise deployment by Chainstack. Thank you very much, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.